indicated your requirements of giving back. You work hard to make money for your shareholders, but without forgetting about the community and how important it is on a global basis to help others in need. I'd like to congratulate you on this. General Powell, you have been a major advocate of companies giving back to the community. I remember in 1997 at the President's Summit for America's Future, where you had your own call to action for the world's corporations to give back. Can you put that into perspective for us? How do you see this incredible work of Toyota and other companies as they respond to critical global crises like what happened here in Japan and elsewhere?
The summit that you made reference to, Mark, came together at the request of President Clinton and our other living presidents to focus on the problem of young people in America. And what we did for young people with that summit can be repeated for other people that are in need. It is so important for corporations to realize that while they are providing value to shareholders, while they're building their companies, and while they're providing a quality product, they have a bigger obligation than that. They have an obligation to serve the society in which they live and operate. They have an obligation to invest in the young people of their communities, because those young people will grow up and become your customers, grow up and become your employers. And I have to say that after the summit, as we were assembling partners, you were one of the very first to step forward. And through your efforts and listening to what we were saying, you created your 111 program that gives back of your time, talent, and treasure to the communities in which you operate. That is so very, very important. In the 15 years we've been at it, we've got more and more companies involved. Some roughly 500 companies now involved. Some interesting companies you wouldn't think about. The Ritz-Carlton Four Seasons hotels are participating with us. Why? Because they want to train youngsters about the hotel business and the food business, and maybe some of these youngsters will go into that business. In this demanding environment that we're living in, we really have to reach down in all of our communities and start to give youngsters hope and a belief in themselves and a belief in their country, so that they can start to prepare themselves for the more difficult jobs and the more high-skilled jobs that we require. And that's the problem for Americans. I'd like to just pick up on a few things Toyoda-san said with respect to the world economy and what's happening. One of the standard statements I make is that the most powerful force at work today is wealth creation, the building of economies. You know, we have Iraq, we have Afghanistan, we have these crises. But when you add up all of those crises, from North Korea all the way across to Afghanistan and the Arab Spring, that's about 700 million people in a world of 7 billion. What are the rest of them doing? In Japan, in China, in India, and so many other places in the world, they're trying to fix their economies. In the United States of America, we're trying to fix our economy, because it is through wealth creation that you bring people up out of poverty, that you give them homes, that you give them jobs, that you give them hope for the future. And that really is the most important political force at work in the world today. Not the conflicts we see, but the hope for a better future, providing jobs for people who want those jobs. And in a world where, as a result of Salesforce.com and a lot of other companies, everybody can see what everybody else is doing and what everybody else is getting. And those people who have not seen their lives improve, but seen some of their fellow citizens doing a lot better, are saying, when is it my turn? And this is a remarkable time in which to be living, where we can see more people in democracy than ever before, more people living in democratic systems than ever before. But to sustain that, it's wealth creation and economic development that is the most important force at work in the world today.
General, this turmoil in the Middle East has not been smooth, and the Arab Spring that you mentioned, of course, has played out in many different countries, but also we see it, especially in Egypt, and now we see a transition to a new government there, and you saw additional unrest happening. What can we expect in the Middle East, and what can we expect in this kind of political environment going forward? Do you have some insight into this?
Well, as I look at it, some people say, well, some great big conglomerate is going to form of Arab states, and that's not going to happen. Each one of these countries is separate, with a different history, with a different culture, with a different background, and they're all going to have to find their own path to the future. I think they will see that if they want to be successful, then they can't just argue about religion or fundamentalism or lack of fundamentalism. They've got to worry about how do we build an economy. Just remember how the Arab Spring started. It was a street peddler in Tunisia who got fed up with the government. The government was restricting him just to sell his wares on the street. And he burned himself. He killed himself. And that's what started it. And so any government that is emerging in either Egypt all the way across the Arab Spring that does not deal with the fundamental problem of finding jobs for poor people and giving them hope, they will not be successful. That's what they're going to be arguing about. That's what they have to do. Not what kind of constitution we have or what level of fundamentalism we will achieve or tolerate, but how do we create a better life for our people? That's why they rioted. That's why you had the Arab Spring. Because the Arab Spring, those folks could see what was happening in other parts of the world. Look how China has come up. Look how India is coming up. Why not us? And the answer is we want it to be us, and we'll riot and take down our government if that's what it takes. There are some countries that don't get it. North Korea does not get it. Iran still does not get it. Syria does not get it. But ultimately, these forces, these historic forces that are at work, will change those countries as well. And it may take time, but it'll happen because people want a better life, and they can see that better lives are achievable elsewhere in the world. We want it too.
Well, I think we also have to look at technology, which is one of the reasons that we're having the conference here today, as one of the ways that many of these changes have happened. Certainly, I remember the famous tweet that happened from Whale Golem in Egypt, who said, "All Egyptians come home." We've seen this technology now become a great democratizing force throughout the world. Mobile devices, Twitter, Facebook, social networks. We see this ability to have devices. I'm sure everyone in this room has a mobile device with them of some type. They're connected to a high-speed network. It seems that the very nature of leadership itself is changing based on some of this technology. We have to find new ways to express ourselves, but also new ways to lead. Toyoda-san, how do you see that? How do you see technology changing leadership? And how do you see technology impacting the world and contributing to the forces that the General has outlined?
まずテクノロジーで特にセールスフォースのマーク・ベニオフさんに教えていただいたテクノロジーというのがあります。2年前でしたか。私こういう背格好ですけど、割とアナログ人間なんです。で、初めてですね。初めてマークさんのハワイのご自宅をお邪魔した時に、マークさんが片手にですね、iPad を片手に。世の中の情報っていうのはこうやって動いてくるんだよ。世界中にいる仲間からこんなに瞬時に一つこうやって質問をすれば全部答えが返ってくるんだよという世界を目の当たりにさせてもらいました。あれ以降本当に私のいわば、ビジネスライフっていうのはちょっと変化があったんじゃないかなと思っています。例えば自分の時間って24時間しかありません。これはマークさんも24時間ですし、ジェネラルも24時間です。ですからその24時間をどれだけみんなのために貢献できるように使えるかというのは、どういう情報がいかにどうタイムリーに入ってくるかというのにかかってくると思います。そうした時にこの Facebook だとかチャッターとかですね、特にマークさんと一緒にやらせていただいているこの我々の全世界の従業員とつないでいるシステムがございます。あれはですね、何が役立っているかというと、いわばその32万人の一人一人の目線で世界が見えるチャンスを僕に与えてくれて、それはものすごくありがたいことだと思います。それとその中のほとんどの人っていうのは物理的に会うこともできませんし、会ったとしても1年に1回か2回、そういう人たちと本当にバーチャルの世界、ネットの世界で本当にたびたび会うことができる、あたかも会って情報交換しているような世界というのは本当に自分にとって役に立っています。いつもその変革というのは お客様が作る世界だとも思っています。例えばこれ自動車の世界にいたしますと、例えば自動車ができてちょうど100年ぐらいが経ちます。100年前にはいわばアメリカというのは1500万頭の馬がいたんですね。今は年間約1500万ぐらいの車が売れてます。ですからこの馬からモビリティの世界がこの車というものに変わったのもやっぱりお客様だと思いますし、こういったテクノロジーというものがこんなエスタブリッシュメントな車という産業ですけれども、走る曲がる止まるにいわばつながる、という機能がつながったら、あたかもその iPad に4つのタイヤがついてたらどうなったかというようなですね、考え方で車を見直すというのがワクワクして面白いんじゃないかなと思っております。
Yeah, it's interesting because here in Japan in general there is a term, Japanese. I don't speak the Japanese language very well, but there's a term called obeya. It means a kind of a large room where ideas are shared. Is this the correct word, Toyoda-san, obeya? And this room is exciting because not only is this where idea creation happens, but of course it's a room of transparency. Everybody knows what everybody else is doing, and it's also a room of trust. You have a one-to-one relationship with everyone. When you were speaking, General, about the changes that are going on in the world and the linkage with technology, it seems that in the public world we're creating an obeya, that everyone is able to kind of know where everybody else is. It doesn't matter if there is one person in Tunisia or one person in Egypt. They can create a whole sea change in the world. And as Toyoda-san was saying, also it applies to a company that there can be a giant obeya even though there's maybe different offices and they're not all in one physical room. It's actually one virtual room. And it seems that there's some type of linkage between transparency and trust and this next generation of leadership that is emerging through technology. How do you see transparency and trust in this new environment?
I think they're absolutely connected. When I became Secretary of State in 2001, I discovered that we had a fairly ancient information system within the department. We were still using Wang computers and K-Pros. My God, this can't be. So I bought 44,000 new computers and put a new computer on every desk in every embassy, consular office, and office within the Washington, D.C. State Department, and connected my people. It was easy to put the hardware in. Software, a little harder, but the most difficult part was changing the brainware, getting everybody to understand that we no longer work by weeks or months or years, we work instantaneously. It's a transactional world. And the only way to get them going, I had to be on email myself, and I would start sending people emails, which made everybody nervous. Oh my gosh, the secretary sent me an email. But I wanted that. I wanted to create a level of transparency where information would flow laterally up and down. And the most fascinating thing I've seen is I was born and raised analog like Toyoda-san, but not my grandchildren. These kids were born hardwired digital. They don't understand anything that's analog anymore. Within 2 years, the remote control will be obsolete. Everybody will just be using make sure your index finger has been well trained, because between iPads and smartphones, that's how you're going to be communicating with the world, with your television set, with your garage, back at home. And our kids, this is second nature to them. And so I am watching my grandchildren to get a sense of what the future is going to be like in the world to come. And it's a bright future, because with transparency, where nothing is hidden, where everybody can see everybody, then you have to be more honest in your dealings with each other. And you have to make sure you build bonds of trust. And trust comes from honesty. Trust comes from taking care of the followers, your employees, or your customers. And I think it'll make for a better company, a better society, a better world.
Well, one of the things that the General mentioned is this idea of this kind of a connected automobile. It seems, Toyoda-san, that we're in a renaissance for the automobile industry. You have these next generation drivetrains with these electric engines, but you also have connected cars, and they're connected to mobile devices, and there's an opportunity to create the next level of automobile experience. You know, as you're designing that and creating that future for Toyota, and you see a future for the automobile industry that's very different than it was in the past, what do you think 2 or 3 characteristics will be of this next generation of automobile, and what kind of experience do you think we will have in the future? You've shown some very exciting designs like the Fun V here at the Tokyo Motor Show last year, and many other ideas that you have been coming up with at Toyota. How do you think that this technology will affect your industry?
はい、まず自動車というものはどういう商品か、というところで、やっぱりどういう時代になっても自動車の持つ特徴で買いたくないものもあります。それとやっぱり時代の要請にあたって変えていくものもあると思います。じゃあ何を変えたくないかというと、私自身車というのは A 地点から B 地点に移動するモビリティの中で、移動する中においてその動きにドライバーにフリーダムを与えている唯一のモビリティだと思うんですね。ここで止まりたい、ここを右に回りたい、道さえあればどこでも行けるのがやっぱり自動車だと思うんです。ですからやっぱりそういうドライバーに自由を与えること、そして決して白物家電というかね、コモディティというか、コモディティじゃない車っていうのはなんか個性があって、車と会話がしたくなるような、そういうものという部分は僕はどんな時代になっても残したいと、私車好きですからそこはこだわりたいと思います。ただそれ以外の部分ですね、それ以外の部分っていうのはさっきもイノベーションというのはお客様が決める、市場が決める、世の中が決めるということがあるように、やはり走る、曲がる、止まるのそこの部分はこだわりたいんですが、やっぱりつながるというところに関してはより楽しく、よりなんか走ってたら、これはねマークさんにも教えてもらったんですけど、走ってる車同士が会話をする、それと車から充電してよっていうねメッセージが届いてくる、それからあとこのガソリンだとこのぐらい走れますよと、そばにこんなガソリンスタンドありますよということを車が教えてくれるとかですね、いろんな車との対話を考えるといろんなことが出てくると思います。ですから僕は車なんだから、車の中でどれだけつながるとか、今の若者が楽しんでる世界、要は車っていうのはなんか単に移動して、いろいろとそこで家族がね言い争ったりする場所じゃなくて、いわば車っていうのは移動空間の中でもなんかワクワクドキドキする、その中にスペシャルな場所があるというようなですねものにしておかないと、我々の将来はなくなりますから、ぜひそうしていきたいなと。それをするためには今日ねたくさんいらっしゃいますけど、こういう方々のやっぱりアイディアっていうかね、アイディアなんかを得るのにやっぱり大企業のドーンとところで待っててもなかなかそういう情報っていうのは来ません。ですから自らも動く、そしてこういうツールを使ってですね、どんどん面白いこと、ワクワクすること、というものを手に入れて何とか具現化していきたいなと